What's up, party people? Welcome back to the Swimmingly Show. I'm Charlie Houchin, gold medalist and CEO of Swimmingly.
I'm Hayes Johnson, president of Swimmingly. We've been through every level of the sport, from summer swimming to NCAA champions to the Olympic Games. And today we work with over 1,000 swim teams to make swim meets more fun and simple, all by using the device in your pocket.
That's right. This is for swim parents, coaches, and anybody that wants to get better in the sport, swimmers included. Let's kick it off.
So today, Charlie, we're going to be blunt about swim meets. They haven't changed in about 30 years, and that's a pretty big problem. You got stopwatches, paper cards, delayed results for spectators and parents, a million DQ slips, and it's all still here at
All
the
right.
swim meets we run today.
So you're telling us we're getting into the kind of the mechanics of this. We don't always think about how swim meets run. So let's break this down. Why this problem exists, who's holding it back, and what swimming would look like if we maybe reimagined the way that the sport is being run here in 2025.
Yeah, exactly. Excited to dive into this. So, Charlie, let's start with you, man. You've swum in arguably every big meet in the world, but let's take it back to the grassroots level. And what's the most outdated thing that you still see today at summer swim meets?
That's got to be stopwatches, paper, any archaic hardware being the timing system for the meet. Think about this. We live in a world where my phone can order, I can press a button and anything can be here within 4 hours. But at swim meets, we're still writing times down. We're still learning how to, use RF transmitters or sync up, these pieces of hardware and passing this information across the pool deck.
Yeah, and all those times and data, especially the way that they're collected on the pool deck, they actually don't end up getting to the families, the spectators, the ones who are sitting around these long swim meets for hours until days later.
That's exactly right. The practical result that we see is families show up at 7 a.m. They sit there for hours. Half of them leave not even knowing how their kids swam, and they have no idea what happens. Now, some of the administrators conceptualize the idea of how it's supposed to work, and they can see the results getting to the parents eventually, maybe even as soon as possible. But the actual practical result is that across the majority of swim meets, we simply do not see that happening. It's a huge lag if they get results, and many don't get results at all. And when they do, the parents have long forgotten about the event.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, you've got sports like baseball where parents are following in real time, know exactly what's happening on the app Game Changer.
Mhm.
You've got soccer who also uses Game Changer and other things like Huddle. And then basketball has the instant stat tracking in the same apps that are available. So why hasn't swimming caught up to this?
We may have them beat in passion for our sport, but I think they've got us beat in innovation. And it's because swimming keeps saying, well, this is how we've always done it. And we almost wear that statement with a badge of honor, but that's not a reason, it's an excuse. I mean, so with innovation today, you see apps for youth sports, and those apps, much of the user-facing experience is around consuming what's going on at the sporting event, which is great. That's what we want. That's what the parent sitting in the bleachers sees. But in order to have that experience, you have to have technology running the sport or the meet or the game that allows the parent in the bleachers to actually consume it on an app. So let me break that down as an example. You mentioned Game Changer for baseball, but the parents in the bleachers using the Game Changer app, the scoreboard in their pocket, they're only seeing that because there's someone actually on the operations side using that side of the Game Changer app to log what's going on.
Bingo.
So in swimming, the operational side, if you will, is so far behind. People can envision what it should look like from an experiential standpoint, but the operations are so far behind, it's not feasible to build a fan experience on top of it. Let me give you an example. Traditional swim meet software is so archaic, you can't even run an Apple computer on the industry standard Meet Manager. only Windows. Windows versus Mac compatibility, even to have that discussion, that the last time that was relevant was in the 1990s. So the primary software used to run swim meets doesn't even work on one of the leading industry computers that exist. That's how far behind meet operations is.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. We are so far behind.
So you got the operational side, you got the experiential side. Experiential side, as long as the operations can keep pace with the technology, then you can have both. So let's name names here. Who's Hayes, who's really standing in the way of change here? Where are the barriers? Where do you see them?
At the grassroots level, I would say it's got to boil down to those league admins slash board members who, at the end of the day, just love control. I mean, we've been to so many summer swimming meets, and we can pick out the ones that don't operate well or don't have satisfactory, reporting back from the parents or the spectators. And we notice that on the summer swimming pool decks that have the USA swimming officials, for example, who walk onto a summer league deck and run it like it's world championships. The people who haven't had a swimmer in the league for years, but they're still running the show. Those are the people that cannot let go of this power. And like you said earlier, Charlie, it's always how it's been run. We're going to keep running it this way because they want to control that.
So what are the usual excuses? What are the stories you've heard out there?
Well, we always hear, it looks great, but we run a tight ship over at this league, or we run a tight ship on this team. That's always a good one, I would say. Yeah. And then the best one is our meets are as fast as they can be. Okay, great. But what about the parents and the spectators? What are you giving them to give them a better experience, if anything? And honestly, these types of meets, the people who say our meets are fast as they can be, or we run a tight ship, we've been to those meets and we see the parents saying, these meets are actually really long, really confusing. I don't know what's going on, and I'm not having that much fun.
So what you're saying is the message you get from the administrator is not necessarily the message you get from all the parents that are actually experiencing what's going on.
That's exactly right.
I feel like when they say we run a tight ship, it's like somebody that came over on the Mayflower being like, you know what? This Mayflower, this thing's pretty fast. Like that speedboat's got nothing on us. We run a pretty tight ship around here.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fine. I mean, with the processes in place, with the old computer, if they're even using a system like an older computer or two computers, and then you've got the stopwatches and the paper cards and the runners and the manual data entry for hours, I guess you can get to a point where you are running somewhat of a tight ship in that scenario. But these people are so against thinking outside the box. Like they can't even get there. They're so used to what they've been done. And again, it's these people that have been around the block and they've want to run this show for as long as they can. I think those people really just cannot think outside the box in this scenario.
Is it their pride getting in the way of change?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are instances where that's the case, but I think they've just maybe got complacent in the situation and they're like, hey, this is pretty good, at least from where I'm sitting. But what they don't do is think about the parents and the spectators that are at these 4-hour meets watching their kids swim for a couple minutes. I mean, they've got to start thinking about them in order to help grow this sport because those parents are the ones getting them to the pool for practices and meets.
Yeah. I mean, in one sense, the administrator, the attitude can almost be like, you know what, we've figured it out. It's pretty tight ship. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. And I could almost get on board with that. But if you interview any of the parents in the stands, that's not what they're saying. The administrator might feel like they have a handle on it and they sort of understand, but the result for the parents is just anything but.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, man. Like, I think the parents really want change.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I mean, they're sitting around a pool deck in a chair in the sun, waiting for their kid to swim, not knowing what's going on. Like, I really do think they want something that's awesome change and that they're going to love.
Yeah.
But the gatekeepers, the decision makers are saying no.
So is it, I asked this a minute ago, but is this fear of technology of something new, or is it fear of losing that power for that administrator?
Mostly it's losing control. I mean, we see it. We see it all the time. We talk to these people.
I think that's right.
And until they get turned over, I don't think they're really open to change. I mean, change threatens the system that they've built around themselves, leading the league or the team, which is fine. But that system isn't built for today's families. I mean, you've got those same families that are going to baseball games and experiencing an incredible app like Game Changer, and then they come to a meet and they have nothing. They might get a paper heat sheet. I doubt it.
Like you got to encourage those types of people to just look at it from a fresh start with a clean blank slate, clean canvas, and almost encourage them to dream out loud of what it could be, right? That's what it
Yeah, and
seems
even
like.
right, and even some of these, league administrators, board members, what have you, that have been in the game for so long that might not even have kids in youth sports anymore, they can't
Hmm.
even relate to a thing like Game Changer because they haven't seen it.
Right.
So we're trying to tell them that there are these amazing experiences in other sports that are moving so fast and the parents are having the best time following and tracking and all of that stuff, but they can't even relate to that.
Yeah, yeah. The personnel needs a progression map, and they don't. They built everything themselves, and kudos to them out of manual, processes. But the personnel need a progression map, and they just don't have. They're so busy having done what they've done and trying to maintain it that it's very difficult for them to look ahead.
So yeah, all right, Charlie, let's shift a little bit. Let's dream and let's say if we started swim meets from scratch today, no legacy systems, no politics, what might that look like?
Fun. It'd be fun. It'd be weekly. It'd have the opportunity to be weekly, racing, cheering for friends, no more than an hour, and not having to it being driven by the participants. We've always said the strength of swimming is in its participation, and the sport, the swim meet, because you can't have sport without competition. The sport is the swim meet, has always been locked down by the officials, the bureaucrats, the administrators, the folks that we need to run the meet. And so the answer is, what would it look like? It would look like swimmers swimming and racing, coaches coaching and having fun, and the tracking of the times, the automation wouldn't take anything, more than just an AI tool, and
Or
you
a
could
device in
set
your pocket, huh?
or the device in your pocket, man. No, absolutely no personnel required to do any of the operations because it's just no longer needed. That would be the beauty.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this as you were saying something earlier. The swim meets are just set in their ways, obviously. And in regards to building these swim meets from scratch, I'm thinking of these long event orders that are, in summer swimming, they're pretty standard for the most part. I mean, all leagues have different ways of ordering them, but
Yeah.
they all accomplish like a million events. They've got a 25 of each stroke, a 50 of each stroke, 100 IM, relays of everything. Why do you think that the grassroots, talking about summer swimming, is so locked in on that full event order for every single meet? And do you think that it could be shorter for each meet? And why do you think they feel like the kids have to compete in every single event, every single meet?
I think partially it's the way it's always been. So you always have that fallout. They see it as equal, I think, equal opportunity for each swimmer in terms of, well, if we're going to offer the freestylers the freestyle event, then we're going to need to offer the breaststrokers the breaststroke event. And if that's true, then you have to do butterfly and backstroke, and don't forget individual medley. And of course, we have to do relays, but you need freestyle and you need medley relays. And then what you're saying is the Olympic Games or the World Championships runs all of the events over the course of 9 days, 10
Yeah.
days. And they're trying to do it not in one day, but in one evening, starting at 6 p.m. And they're like, well, I don't know why the meet lasted until midnight. It's because you're trying to run 10 days of swimming in one day.
So true.
You gotta quit it. You gotta stop doing that, and you gotta break it out. You're not running a whole tournament for baseball within one day. It's spread out, offer opportunities, high volume, short duration. So let me say that again. High frequency, short duration, not low frequency, high duration. That's what drives everybody down. That's what gets parents sore in the bleachers from sitting there
Yeah,
for
I love
4 to
that.
6 to 8 hours. It's high frequency, short duration is what we're looking for. You can have a 45-minute breaststroke meet against two teams just like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a good point. And then in reimagining these swim meets, Charlie, we've talked about what it looks like for the swimmers and the coaches. What about for the parents? What do you think their experience should be like? Totally ditching the way they're run today and starting from.
Yeah, I think the parents need to always, in a youth sport where you're always introducing a significant percentage of new parents to the sport, maybe even a plurality every season. You might have 20% new parents, 30% new parents. There's a lot. They need to be made to feel as though they immediately are a part of this community. And so whatever experience you deliver, on the device that's in their pocket, they need to feel a part of the community immediately. Or if there's any insider language, they need to be brought into the lingo, not feel as though they're an outsider because they haven't learned the lingo. And if you can deliver that in an experience right in front of them, that's what's going to pull them in. They of course care about their kids. So having the experience of when their swimmer's coming up, how they did, compare it to a previous time, the idea that average new parent tracks their swimmer's best times, that they don't really know what that stuff means yet. So if you can explain and educate them in that experience and say, hey, Tommy improved by this much from last week, it really just goes a long way in benefit. And here's the thing, Hayes, if you can have that experience for the average parent, you're routinely demonstrating the benefits of belonging to our youth sport to them, and they're more likely to stay in the sport or to invite other families to be a part of the sport.
Yeah, and those new families, they need to be educated. And, even the country club I coach, the parents do such a good job educating the new parents.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they really take the time to do it. And some teams do a great job.
For sure.
But other teams really just miss that, and they don't help educate those new, 50 kids that come on, and the parents that are with them, new to the club, excited for summer swimming, but they're coming in blind. So obviously the coach can do a good job educating the parents. And speaking of coaches, Charlie, in this meet scenario, changing it up, starting from scratch, how does it look for the coaches?
One system to use. They want to coach. They don't want to do administrative work. Couple of buttons for entries, eliminating any emailing or file system integration and shuffle. If you're still using high tech for summer swim meet, you're not behind. You're decades behind at this point. If you're using a file to integrate rosters and entries from one place to the next, I mean, you might as well be using the Pony Express and sending snail mail, man. That's so far behind.
I mean, what's that group? What's that group on Facebook for high tech? It's like
the surviving meet manager and team manager. Yeah. And of course, it's right there in the name. It's not we love using this software Facebook group. It's surviving team manager and meet manager. And it's because A, everyone just assumes that's the only option that they have. And B, it is surviving it because it is literally a manual process of taking a file and emailing it and importing it from place to place to place. It's an absolute disaster, and it's designed to be a disaster. It can't be a good system because it's not a system. It's just independent file shuffling. And like I said, you're not just behind if you're using that, you're decades behind if you're using that.
Yeah. And then most importantly, because summer swim meets could not be run without them, and we love our volunteers, but what does it look like for volunteers and the meet operations side of those meets?
Yeah, I always say that there's no volunteers needed in the future for swim meets because those people that are charitable, hospitable, that want to volunteer in spirit, now you can actually focus on the people and not the process. So what I mean by that is you shouldn't have to need any timers. You shouldn't have to need any runners. You shouldn't have to need, people to put in manual data. You shouldn't have to need all of these positions that have become sort of industry standard requirements to run a swim meet. My position is that you shouldn't need any of them, so that those people that are willing to volunteer and give of their time can do it in just a more constructive manner where they're actually connecting with the swimmers or with the other parents and welcoming the guest team, for example. So that's what it looks like in a perfect world on the volunteer side for me.
Yeah. I mean, all of this sounds so obvious, but right now, unfortunately, the reality couldn't be further from all of that. And I think we're doing the best we can to help, especially those newer families and teams and leagues kind of get to that place. So,
yeah. So, I mean, there's consequences here. So I'm interviewing you now. There's talk about the stakes of this. Why does this matter? Why is it what we're proposing here? Why can't they just keep doing things the old way?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this in our other episodes. We're losing participation like crazy in swimming. And the answer is because families won't stay. The old way works, but it's absolutely miserable. Everything is disconnected from the next. Families might try one season and get buried in confusion, and they move their kids to soccer because they know they're going to get a 45-minute game on a Saturday.
Yeah. Numbers back it up. We can see that. We look at it every week. Leagues that simplify see higher participation. Volunteers actually come back. Kids swim more, families are engaged, families are more likely to invite other neighbors and other families to join the team as well. And ironically, it typically happens around an inflection point in areas for swim meets, and that is when a team or league loses old officials and administrators. They've gotten so old that they have to retire. In other words, it forces younger families and volunteers or staff to rethink and approach the meets, which is inevitably simpler. So if you lose your old guard because they've retired and you're forced to have younger volunteers step into a solution and they're starting with that blank canvas that we talked about, they will never arrive at doing the process that used to be done. They're going de facto to think of something simpler. And so it's good to see that new generation stepping in because it's attracting simplicity, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, when people say, which we hear a bunch, we don't necessarily need technology. It worked fine when I was a kid, or it works fine now. I always like to say, well, what about the new families? What about them? They do not know the playbook and how meets are run. They don't.
Yep.
Like, you have to start thinking about those new families and educating them and getting them into this new awesome experience. Otherwise, they're going to leave. They need clarity, they need simplicity, and most importantly, they need fun for their kids, most importantly, but also themselves.
Yeah. I think this is probably the take-home message for today is administrators, it's not about you. It's about the families. Your perspective is not the perspective of the average family on your pool deck. This tech or innovative new ideas, so to speak, some old guard might roll their eyes about this sort of thing, but tech isn't about convenience. It's about keeping people in the sport. I always say technology isn't cool for technology's sake. It's cool because it connects families that are new in the sport and it makes the sport more exciting. The parents sitting in the stands represent, 90+% of the folks involved. And the old guard, the 10% on the pool deck as administrators, they've just got to understand more and more, and many do, that it's just not about them. It's about, you got to understand the perspective of the parents that are in the stands, and you got to match expectations they have with what you can do and improve on the administrative side.
Yeah, you nailed that. I mean, let's zero in on summer swimming a little bit. Why do you think, and technology, why do you think this is the best place for innovation right now?
Yeah, summer swimming, the grassroots of the sport, is a good match for a good innovative hotbed in swimming because the seasons are short. It's focused because of that, and that is where the new families are. So these new families just respond so well to these cool things. They can see it and go, oh my gosh, like I was thinking like we should have that in swimming. And then they see it and they're like, that's totally cool. And we get emails like that. And that experience right there, that's the front door to the house of the sport of swimming. And right now we're kind of slamming the door with other parts, other demos in the sport, long, messy meets, etc.
And yet some people run these meets like it's Olympic trials, not to name names on who those types of people are. But why is this?
Yeah. Old habits, egos, grumpy old curmudgeons, the mindset of we've always done it this way. I mentioned that earlier. Summer swim meets have to be fun, and it can't be about the administrators and the process they built. There's a lot of pride that needs to be put aside. These entrenched procedures, we touched on this a minute ago, but they're built around the tools that were available at the time to that old guard that implemented them. And in good faith, that's great. And, we needed that in 1975, but it's not 1975. You and I have spent many a summer league meet with volunteers who just pride themselves on time slip card procedures, meet entry procedures that they built. They did this for their community, place judging features, procedures, times, that they built for their community. And people respond to that and they feel this pride that they personally built these processes over years of work for their neighborhood swim team. And that's the blessing and the curse of the sport. Because at the grassroots, a lot of people want to hold on to that. And, as 38 Special says, Donnie Van Zant says, you have to hold on loosely. And if you cling too tightly, you're going to lose control. And that's what we experience with summer swim teams.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it all. I mean, we've been running swim meets for 12, what is it, our 12th year? Can't even remember.
Yeah.
Almost 12th year, 11th year, 12th year. And we obviously know that the large leagues exist. I mean, there are leagues with over 100 teams out there that, are completely resistant to change. And it's, the politics in those leagues is very deep, very hard to kind of penetrate and even share a vision of something new. But we do see small leagues of 10 to 15 to 20 teams that embrace innovation so quickly. They run more meets, they have happier families, and create real legacies in sport.
Yeah, I would say, if there's one practical thing you can implement, regardless of anything else in a league, it's having a league less than 20 teams is a really, really good thing. Regardless of what you do other than that, you can get everybody in the same room together. It's easier to make decisions. You lose a lot of that bureaucracy that gets built up over time that we see with team leagues of, 80 or 100 teams. And we're starting to see, and a lot of had a conversation this week with one breaking off from one of the huge leagues in a particular metropolitan area. And that's good. That is good for the sport because it really brings summer swimming back to its roots, where you have 6 or 8 or 12 or 16 teams in an area that know each other, that care about each other. And that's my practical tip for the show today, for sure. So anyway, if you could make the change, you could do one thing for summer swimming to improve it right now, right here, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, very easy for me to answer this question. It would be no more paper on the pool deck. I think the second we ditch paper and stopwatches, that old system, the one that's been used since the 60s, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe since meets have been started, everything changes. I mean, the setup, the timing, the ribbons, the results. Families finally feel like they're a part of it with new innovation. But the teams that come to us, especially, are the ones that talk about the problem on the pool deck. And they very clearly state that these meets are horrible to set up and run. They have to recruit all of these volunteers who don't enjoy running with stopwatches, writing the times down on a piece of paper, handing that to a runner. That runner takes it to this poor computer table where they have to manually enter data in for hours of the meet, only to miss their kids swim because they're sitting there typing on a computer and getting the times in. So that process is just insane. People are stuck on it. People are clinging to it. And, a lot of people don't know there's something else out there. They might go to some old hardware, but I'll tell you what they're not going to do. They're not going to go buy $15,000 worth of touchpads.
Yep, exactly. That's why we built swimmingly, isn't it?
Yes.
So, we have on our side really simple one app, semi-automatic, in-app timing, not to mention officiating, judging, etc. You can punch the DQs in right from your phone. Crazy novel concept, right? You're not writing on a legal pad of the DQ infractions. Here we are, stroke and turn officials, AOs, USA Swimming officials. You ever been here? What's the legal pad of all the DQs? That's an industry standard process for USA Swimming. How about that? No, you just tap to enter a DQ. You go review it on the iPad over here. It's pretty simple. In fact, you don't need a certification at all to do it. Anybody can volunteer. That's the idea. Instant results, no more data entry after midnight. Yeah. Have I overstated the case, Hayes?
Yeah. I mean, I think you've nailed it. I think it's also something to remember. It's not just for swimmers. You've got the parents, and the biggest questions we get from new parents and helping to educate them, all they really care to know are, when's my kid swimming? How'd they do? What's the score of the meet? And when can I get the heck out of here?
Yeah,
And
unpack that a little bit more for those listening, because that's really what we see it boil down to for that new family. Take us through those 4 items again.
yeah, so again, it's the new families coming in. They don't know how a meet runs. They don't know what system's being used. All they care about, they're looking at their kid. They want to make sure they're having fun, swimming fast, enjoying the time with their friends, all of that good stuff. But they're sitting at the side. As a new parent, they might want to know when their kid's swimming. Huh? Maybe how'd they do in the race. If they're scoring at the dual meets, there are some leagues that score, some leagues that don't. But if there's a score, they might want to know the score. And the biggest one is, when can we get the heck out of here? No one ever knows when the meet's going to end, but it's nice to know. And because we're controlling the data and the timing on the pool deck, we're actually sharing all of this information with parents in real time, which they've loved.
That's crazy. Is it like when you walk into a basketball game, there's a scoreboard and there's a clock counting down and it has the quarter that the game is in, right? So I can know nothing about basketball, and I don't know that much about basketball. I watched ACC basketball growing up, but I know if I walk into a gymnasium and I see that there's a clock and it's at 7 minutes and 30 seconds counting down, I know that it's going to be over in 7 minutes and 30 seconds. When you walk onto a pool deck and swimming, there is no clock counting down. As a matter of fact, it's more like you're looking at your watch and the clock is counting up and you're going, okay, now we've been here 4 hours. Now we've been here 5 hours. And it's just such a rudimentary, fundamental, elementary concept that we have to put into the sport, that when an average parent gets to a pool deck and they've never been, they need to know when it's going to be over. They deserve to know when it's going to be over. Are they going to miss their tea time, that Saturday? Are they going to miss dinner, with the rest of the family because they're still at the pool? It's not that the meet is just long. It's that it's long and they don't know when they're going to be done. The time to be done is indeterminable. And that has just got to change. It's outrageous that we ask these parents to go to a meet and completely live in the dark as to how long they're going to be at the meet, and it's got to change. It's got to change.
And I mean, today we work with over 1,000 teams that are excited about this. They love using Swimmingly, and they love this new concept of how you can actually run meets without paper. Mind blowing, right? And they know that we're not here to replace the sport. We're here to modernize the experience. They get it. They've got kids in baseball too. They know what that's like. And we want to make sure that next generation sticks with the sport. We truly do want to help grow the sport and the participation. That is why we're here and why we're building this.
Yeah. So the truth is, if we designed some meets in the sport from a blank canvas today, it wouldn't look the way that they currently are. And it's time that we stop pretending that the old way is good enough.
Yeah. And you definitely don't grow a sport by clinging to clipboards and paper and stopwatches the way it's been done forever and always.
Yeah.
You've got to grow the sport by making it fun, making it simple, making it easy to stay involved, and really making the swim meet experience enjoyable for everyone on the pool deck.
Yeah. If you're within earshot of our voices here and you're wondering about change for your league, change is changey, but the future isn't scary. In fact, it's already here.
Yeah. So next week, we'll be diving into some other fun swimming topics. We don't quite know which one yet. We'll have to leave you on a cliffhanger there. But we're excited, as always, to continue talking about swimming and the grassroots level of the sport. And we appreciate you guys tuning in.
All right. Until then, keep it moving swimmingly.
See ya.